Hi, I'm Jessica Stutzman from Millcreek Township.
And I'm Chantel Rodriguez. Welcome to the Millcreek Government Channel.
We're pleased to welcome Perry Wood, Executive Director of Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority, to talk about how gaming revenue is being reinvested into our community. Perry, thank you so much for joining us here
thank you so
today.
much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So let's get right into this. What is ECGRA and how is it formed? Because I know myself, I know very little of ECGRA. So I'm looking to get more informed, and I'm sure a lot of our audiences too.
So ECRA, or Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority, is a county-based authority created by County Council back in 2007. So it all begins when the state of Pennsylvania legalizes gaming. Like 2005, the legislature, Governor Rendell passes this great piece of legislation with the legislature, and they put a little clause in there, which is unique to gaming legislation in our country. They say there ought to be something called local share gaming revenue. So like a local piece that goes back to the community to reinvest in it. It's also a good political compromise because there were a lot of people that said, hey, if this industry comes in, it's going to be crazy. Everyone's going to lose the family farm, and there'll be crime and violence and tumbleweeds in the streets. So they said, okay, we got to do some reinvestment here. So local share gaming revenue is how they decided to do that. So ECRA was formed in 2007, right after Presque Isle Downs Casino opened up, and we've been operating ever since.
Nice.
And how does ECRA specifically benefit the people of Erie County?
Yeah. So local share gaming revenue comes back. It's 1% of the slot machine revenues. And then some of it also now comes from sports gambling, which is a new concept was just made legal not long ago. So that's about $6.5 million to each group that comes back. So county government takes $6 million. So if you hear in the news that something was funded by gaming revenue, it's confusing because it could be that the county's gaming revenue paid for it. It could be ECRA's gaming revenue paid for it. It could be the redevelopment authority's gaming revenue paid for it. The state has gaming revenue that they pay volunteer fire departments and ambulance services. It can get pretty confusing. So the community benefits because it gets to come back to us. We specifically invest in economic development projects, economic and community development. So we're getting into the communities, and we're funding projects that are important to leaders, residential groups, various small businesses that have come together to make their community a better place, and of course civic groups and nonprofits.
And then how do you choose, again, which projects get funded? Is there a grant application, multiple grant applications?
Yeah, so in order to compare apples to apples, because that's the hardest thing when you have this big pot of money, we create grant guidelines. So it depends on the program, but it's a lot of the things that you've seen our logo at or you've heard that we've invested in. For example, right now we're working on the special events grant. We always do that right at the beginning of the year so we can fund hundreds of special events right at the beginning, so we know we're going to have like a great spring, summer, and even some winter events in there too. We do that, and we take those applications in, and the board looks at it and makes their choice on who should get funding.
What are some, just off the top of your head, some notable special events that our viewers would recognize?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows Celebrate Erie. All the events at Presque Isle, right? Presque Isle Days is a good one. But then there's the ethnic ones too that kind of define us as a community. Like I always volunteer at Zabawa. That's the Polish Fest. There's the Irish Fest, St. Paul's Italian Fest. I was rolling pepperoni balls this year.
And food is such a wonderful way to culturally bring everyone together. We just had a discussion, I think, over lunch about everybody's, cultural food preferences. And it is a good way to, bring the Erie community together, and we're not all that different from each other.
There's history and identity in all those foods. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I know we've all taken part, at least I've taken part in almost every single festival that is downtown or wherever in Erie. So they're really fun events and really, again, brings the community together.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I know we're in 2025 right now, but what was ECRA's 2024 like? What does that look like, if you could explain it?
Yeah, we actually did a lot in 2024. $6.5 million in grants. Normally we average around $4.5 to $5 million in grants, so we did 6.5. So we had a really big year. But it's the stuff that you're familiar with, like improving parks, all over Erie, parks, fields, and trails. Like we're putting investments there, about $450,000, $1.5 million into the main streets. So that's, you go to like a downtown Union City, for example, or downtown Northeast. We're fixing up the main streets by putting in new facades and street signage. Some for small business revolving loan funds. And then there were some really creative things like the Erie Center for Arts and Technology did a pre-apprenticeship concept for construction workers. Very excited about that concept. We're going to see where that goes. But that was an exciting one. That was a big dollar figure for us. And then, of course, the Renaissance Block. We're going to neighborhoods, working with groups like Sisters of St. Joseph and Union City Action and Impact Corey to really fix up the neighborhoods.
And when you're involved in these projects, how do you feel when you start the project versus when the project ends? Like, is there a sense of, gratification or like a sense of pride that you were able to help, get these off the ground through ECGRA?
Yeah, I mean, we really exist to empower everyone else to succeed. And that's what's the great part about ECGRA. So when somebody comes to us with a project that's not fully ready to be implemented, we coach them. We might send them a direction to a resource to help get it to a point where it's fundable. But at the end of the day, there is a great sense of satisfaction to it. And people can see the difference in their community, whether it be, the neighbor's house that got fixed up or that downtown facade that went from, purple to a brick facade. That's a big difference. And aesthetics are important in our community. They really are part of the economic development equation.
Yeah, and just looking over some of the things like the Beehive grant. I don't know why that like took my eye to that, but like what is that? Because I've never heard that.
Yeah, so the Beehives, that was a multi-year process in which we got the universities to work collaboratively on basically what they do best in order to help the entrepreneurs of our community. So they had published a report that basically said, okay, we're excited to work together toward economic development initiatives. We would like to help entrepreneurs. So we went to them and said, why don't you do it as a team rather than separately? And so they took a few years to do some planning, and they came to an agreement. Merciers is going to focus on intelligence and competitive analysis. Gannon has their business modeling and their kind of information health systems. Edinburgh, really excited about what they do, strategic branding and marketing for these small businesses. And then Barron with their superior engineering programs, the prototyping concepts have been fantastic. And we got the Blasco Library Idea Lab in there too. So they're always exchanging information with each other, and they're passing entrepreneurs back and forth to help them get whatever it is, whatever stage they're at in their development. That's what the Beehives are. And so the metaphor is that these entrepreneurs are buzzing around, and they're doing their best to provide the honey.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I wouldn't have been surprised if it was actually like a pollinator grant, like if there was something environmental tied to it. And as you're explaining this and it's unfolding, I'm like, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
and it's it's everybody working collaboratively. I mean, that's really what a beehive does. Everybody has a job, and you've got your particular task or mission that you have to do, and in the end there's this beautiful outcome.
And it's a great benefit for the students because it's really a student faculty driven concept. So you have these young people who are getting to experience these entrepreneurs and help them firsthand. It's great for their portfolios.
And everything stays local from what it looks like, at least for the start of it. They're getting help from the local colleges. It's local people who are investing in it. So
Absolutely.
You guys are doing a lot of investing in that quality place where we all call home.
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah. So, and again, you're investing in Erie. You're also working with Infinite Erie.
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders of Infinite Erie. About 3 years ago now, it was ECGRA, Erie Insurance, Erie Community Foundation, the Jefferson, and the Chamber got together and said, let's get ready for the federal funds that are going to be flowing our way. We need to get organized. We need to be talking. We need to figure out a way to create local match. And there's some hard problems we need to solve as a community. So let's get organized and let's get rowing in the same direction, singing off the same sheet of music, and create a common table where we can all discuss this at. And here we are 3 years later. We're doing some really exciting things. And advocacy is one of the biggest. Advocacy with state and federal officials. so that our region can speak with one voice to those funding sources, both legally and to get some grants.
Mm-hmm. And I have been assisting on the sustainability team for Infinite
Well,
Erie
thank
as
you very
well.
much.
So you're welcome. You're welcome. And so, yeah, it is just so many projects in the works, and so many great minds on those projects.
Yeah,
So.
it's great. I mean, I'm really excited about the one coming up in this year that we're launching, which is early childhood development and daycares. We have been advocating for that since basically since the pandemic. I mean, we've always known that there was an issue with not having enough resources in that field, but when the pandemic hit, it really put an exclamation mark on it. I mean, that industry collapsed overnight. No one was going to work, right? Except for essential workers. And then so we had to prop up the YMCA to kind of take in the essential workers' kids so that they could go to the hospitals and EMTs, and actually grant writers like myself are considered essential workers, which I didn't know until then. But we kept that going, and then we said, okay, as the years went by, like some studies were done. The Jefferson did 2 really good studies. One of them really helped us quantify the issue, which is they found that there's 1,500 slots needed in the city and another 1,000 countywide. So what are we gonna do to get these 2,500 slots? We brought in some testimony to county government. We brought in 9 providers. Some were independent entrepreneurs, some were large nonprofit operators like the CDC. That's a big one, multi-facility. Some it's just I've got one building and I have 50 kids, and so it's a broad spectrum of entrepreneurs we're working with here. Brought them in, testified. We secured a $2.5 million appropriation to start dealing with the issue. And then the ECGRA board is going to match that with another $2.5 million. So we've got to stabilize that industry, right? By going in and helping the workforce that's there. They're underpaid.
Yeah.
I mean, these are teachers.
Yeah.
These are not babysitters, they're teachers.
No, and I feel so strongly, I have a little girl, and, Chantel, you have kiddos, and one thing is she is my most precious treasure. And, I always said, like, they're not paid enough. And you're right, they're not babysitters. They are fostering her little mind and her development. And you are keeping, my baby safe so I can go to work.
Yeah.
And it's such an important topic to talk about.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of what you're talking about, investing in like the parks and trails, and really investing in the community here, how has ECGRA assisted Millcreek? Because I know a lot of people might be interested in knowing exactly what that has been.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Millcreek Township has seen a tremendous amount of gaming revenue, $3 million just for infrastructure and public safety improvements alone. And then there's the specialized projects that everyone knows about, right? Like Asbury Woods, making improvements there, and that whole event series, the programming. Presque Isle, of course, Presque Isle Partnership has been wonderful to work with. A lot of events, programming, improvements there, improving the Presque Isle Lighthouse. And then actually the dog park at the Humane Society is another one. That's a very popular one.
Nice.
And, I think it's been a big topic of conversation recently. And sometimes I think when you know this the best, when you leave Millcreek and go into Harbor Creek or Summit, Fairview, the city, when you leave Millcreek's boundaries, you don't even know always that you're leaving. You know what I mean? Like, how many times, do we, it's just, the boundaries are really non-existent. You know what I mean? It's really an Erie County, community-wide effort in some of these major conversations that we're having. So the one I wanted to ask about next is how ECGRA has been investing in first responders, because that's so important to keep us safe.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's a great point. I mean, the wind blows between municipalities and doesn't really care.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Water, wind, dust, trees.
And we're breathing the same air wherever we are.
We just flow one to the next. Yeah.
So it's in the state of Pennsylvania, it's a mandate from the state that every municipal government provide ambulance service, and they don't fund it. They say you must provide this. You must figure out a way to provide it with your tax dollars. Some have done a really great job of that, and others have fallen behind as the years have gone on, especially Some volunteer fire departments are super strong. They're multi-generational. Others, they're struggling to get volunteers. They're struggling to get trained EMT professionals to operate these vehicles. So we need to do something about it. And ECRA took a look at, who's doing it the best in the county. And we basically found two different models. You have one in the West County, which is kind of run by Cranesville and the surrounding municipalities. And it's an authority. It's like a little authority that, they each kick in so much money based on a formula, how many residents they have. And then they're able to operate 4 to 6 ambulances, and they're able to staff those ambulances with trained professionals. Another successful model is what Harbor Creek, Wesleyville, and Lawrence Park are doing. Similar model. During the day, they have someone from the municipal government staffing an emergency vehicle, and then after hours, the volunteer folks kick in. So we've kind of found some of those examples. And we said, okay, what do you really need? What they really need at this point is just some grant money to get them over the finish line. So we funded some ambulances, some equipment, and I think we'll continue to do that because I don't know how these folks are going to make it if they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough subject for most people who are in those fire departments where they're lacking certain things and they want to be able to help the community as much as they can. So these grants are really a lifeline for them as well as our community too.
That's right.
And I don't think you could ever, even dream to imagine how much some of those pieces of equipment cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, an advanced life support ambulance is like $600,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
It is. And thank goodness you're able to step up and help those communities. What are some of maybe we didn't already talk about all of them, but what are some of the upcoming ECRA grant opportunities available?
Well, right now, special events is being finalized. We'll award those in March. And we also have Renaissance Block is open. So, that's your neighborhood revitalization. We're investing in people's homes. And then the third is community asset funding, which is arts, culture, entertainment, recreation-based nonprofits.
Mm-hmm. And what is ECRA looking towards in 2025? Like, what are the things that you really want people to keep an eye out for? What do you want them to hear?
Yeah, I mean, definitely keep an eye out for the early childhood learning stuff. Mm-hmm. Our community has 129 providers of early childhood education or daycares. And we've interacted with about 70 to 80 of them so far. So we'll do like a monthly Zoom call and answer any of their questions about how the grant's being developed. We're going to have some grants for them to expand their quality. Because while I mentioned quantity earlier, we need more slots, we also need to improve the quality with it. Mm-hmm. So the state has a system where it gives everybody a 1 through 4 star ranking. And so we need to get more folks in the 3 and the 4 star categories. Just to make, because I mean, this is an investment in our future. Mm-hmm. So I always say early child care is economic development.
Mm-hmm. It's investing in families.
It is. And it's giving them peace of mind when they are at work. Like, I'm at a 4-star facility and I am completely confident, that, again, my child is receiving, support from day one moving forward.
I was talking to a large employer that's we have an elderly population and it's aging, and they provide the home health care workers. They're called Voices for Independence. So they have like 800 home health care workers. The number one thing that disrupts their workers from being able to come in is when their child care situation falls through. Mm-hmm. I think any parent can relate to that.
100%.
I know I've been there.
Yep. We've all been there. You feel it. And just the panic at 6 a.m. of.
Yeah. If you got a sick kid or if the babysitter cancels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Been through it all for sure. So, Perry, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming today. I know our show is coming to a close right now, but is there any one last thought or message that you wanted to leave our viewers with?
Economic development is really about investing in people and places that need the investment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's absolutely key about what we do at ECRA. I mean, we want to create an inclusive economy as we move forward. We want to create as many ladders of opportunity as possible. Building and supporting things like the community college, these are major building blocks moving forward. We're going to be doing some very exciting things this year that I can't talk about just yet, but in order to make sure that the majority of Erie County residents benefit.
All right. Thank you so much, Perry, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you to our viewers who tuned in. Thank you so much. We hope that you take as much as you can from this as far as ECGRA investing in families and in the community. We'll see you again. Have a great day.